fellow Nigerians, today marks the 65th anniversary of our great nation's independence. As we reflect on the significance of this day and our journey of nationhood since October 1960, when our founding fathers accepted the instrument of self-government from colonial rule, let us remember that their sacrifice, devotion, and grand dream of a strong, prosperous, and united Nigeria that will lead Africa and be the beacon of light to the rest of the world. Our founding heroes and heroines, Herbert Macaulay, Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, Chief Obafemi Awolowo, Sir Ahmadu Bello, Margaret Ekpo, Anthony Enahoro, Dayo Akintobi, Michael Okpara, Aminu Kano, Funmilayo Ransome Kuti, and other nationalists believe it was Nigeria's manifest destiny to lead the entire black race as the largest black nation on earth. For decades, the promise of our independence has been tested by profound social, economic, and political challenges, and we have survived. While we may not have achieved all the lofty dreams of our forebearers, we have not strayed too far from them. In 65 years since our independence, we have made tremendous progress in economic growth, social cohesion, and physical development. Our economy has experienced significant growth since 1960. Although it is much easier for those whose vocation is to focus solely on what ought to be, we must recognize and celebrate our significant progress. Nigerians today have access to better education and healthcare than in 1960. At independence, Nigeria had 120 secondary schools with a student population of about 130,000. Available data indicate that as of year 2024, there were more than 23,000 secondary schools in our country. At independence, we had only the University of Ibadan and Yaba College of Technology as the two tertiary institutions in Nigeria. By the end of last year, there were 274 universities, 183 polytechnics, and 236 colleges of education in Nigeria, comprising federal, state, and private institutions. We have experienced a significant surge in growth across every sector of our national life since independence. In healthcare, infrastructure, financial services, manufacturing, telecommunications, information, technology, aviation and defense, among others. Our country has experienced both the good and the bad times in its 65 years of nationhood. As it's normal for every nation and it is people. We fought a bitter and unavoidable civil war, experienced the military dictatorship, and lived through major political crises. In all this, we weathered every storm and overcame every challenge with courage, grit, and uncommon determination. while our system and ties that bind us are sometimes stretched by insidious forces opposed to our values and ways of life, we continue to strive to build a more perfect union where every Nigeria can find better accommodation and find purpose and fulfillment. Fellow compatriots, this is the third time I will address you on our independence anniversary since I assumed office as your president on May 29, 2023. In the last 28 months of my administration, like our founding fathers and leaders who came before me, I have committed myself irrevocably to the unfinished nation-building business. Upon assuming office, our administration inherited a near-collapse economy caused by decades of fiscal policy distortions and misalignment that had impaired real growth. As a new administration, we face a simple choice: continue business as usual and watch our nation drift, or embark on a courageous fundamental reform path. We chose the path of reform. We chose the path of tomorrow over the comfort of today. Less than 3 years later, the seeds of those difficult but necessary decisions are bearing fruits. In resetting our country for sustainable growth, we ended the corrupt fuel subsidy and multiple foreign exchange rates that created massive incentive for a rentier economy, benefiting only a tiny minority. At the same time, the masses received little or nothing from our commonwealth. Our administration has redirected the economy towards a more inclusive path, channeling money to fund education, healthcare, national security, agriculture, and political economic infrastructure, such as roads, power, broadband, and social investment programs. These initiatives will generally improve Nigerians' quality of life. As a result of the tough decisions we made, the federal and state government, including local government, now have more money to take care of the people at the lower level of the ladder to address our development challenges. Fellow Nigerians, we are racing against time. We must build the road we need, repair the ones that have become descriptive, and construct the schools our children will attend, and the hospitals that will care for our people. We have to plan for the generations that will come after us. We do not have enough electricity to power our industries and homes today, or the resources to repair our deteriorating roads, building seaports, railroads, and international airports comparable to the best in the world, because we failed to make the necessary investment decades ago. Our administration is setting things right now. I'm pleased to report that we have finally turned the corner. The worst is over, I say. Yesterday's pains are giving way to relief. I salute your endurance, support, and understanding. I will continue to work for you and justify the confidence you repose in me to steer the ship of our nation to a safer harbor. Under our leadership, our economy is recovering fast, and the reforms we started over 2 years ago are delivering tangible results. The second quarter 2025 gross domestic product grew by 4.23%. That's Nigeria's fastest pace in 4 years, and outpaced the 3.4% projected by the International Monetary Fund. Inflation declined to 20.12% in August 2025, the lowest level in 3 years. The administration is working diligently to boost agricultural production and ensure food security to reducing food costs. In the last 2 years of our administration, we've achieved 12 remarkable economic milestones as a result of the implementation of our sound fiscal and monetary policies. We have attained a record-breaking increase in non-oil revenue, achieving 2025 target by August with over 20 trillion naira. In September 2025 alone, we raised 3.65 trillion. That is 411% higher than the amount raised in May year 2023. We have restored fiscal health. Our debt service to revenue ratio has been significantly reduced from 97% to below 50%. We have paid down the infamous ways and means advances that threaten our economic stability and triggered inflation. Following the removal of the corrupt petroleum subsidy, we have freed up trillions of naira for targeted investment in the real economy and social programs for the most vulnerable, as well as all tiers of government. We have a stronger foreign reserve position today than 3 years ago. Our external reserves increased to 42.03 billion this September, the highest since 2019. Our tax to GDP ratio has risen to 13.5% from less than 10%. The ratio is expected to increase further when new tax law takes effect in January. The tax law is not about increasing the burden on existing taxpayers, but about expanding the base to build the Nigeria we deserve and providing tax relief to low-income earners. We are now a net exporter. Nigeria has recorded a trade surplus for 5 consecutive quarters. We are now selling more to the world than we are buying, a fundamental shift that strengthens our currency and creates jobs at home. Nigeria's trade surplus increased by 44.3% in the second quarter of year 2025 to 7.46 trillion. That is $4.74 billion, the largest in about 3 years. Goods manufactured in Nigeria and exported jumped by 173%. Non-oil export as a component of our export trade now represents 48% compared to oil exports, which account for 52%. This signals that we are diversifying our economy and foreign exchange sources outside oil and gas. Our oil production rebounded to 1.68 million barrels per day from barely 1 million in May 2023. The increase occurred due to improved security, new investments, and better stakeholder management in Niger Delta. Furthermore, the country has made notable advances by refining PMS domestically for the first time in 4 decades. It has also established itself as the continent's leading exporter of aviation fuel. The Naira has stabilized from the turbulence and volatility witnessed in 2023 and 2024. The gap between the official rate and the unofficial market has reduced substantially following FX reforms and fresh capital and remittance inflows. The multiple exchange rates, which fostered the corruption and arbitrage, are now part of history. Additionally, our currency rate against the dollar is no longer determined by the fluctuation in crude oil prices. Under the social investment program, to support poor households and vulnerable Nigerians, 330 billion has been disbursed to 8 million households, many of whom have received either 1 or 2 out of 3 tranches of the 25,000 naira each. Coal mining recovered dramatically from a 22% decline in Q1 to 57.5% growth in second quarter of 2025, becoming one of the Nigeria's fastest growing sectors. The solid mineral sector is now pivotal in our economy, encouraging value-added production of minerals extracted from our soil. The administration is expanding transport infrastructure across the country, covering rail, road, airports, seaports. Rail and water transport grew by over 40% and 27% respectively. The 284-kilometer Kano-Katsina-Maradi standard gauge rail project and the Kaduna-Kano rail line are nearing completion. Work is progressing well on legacy Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway and Sokoto-Badagry Highway. The Federal Executive Council recently approved $3 billion to complete the Eastern Railway project. The world is taking notice of our efforts. Sovereign credit rating agencies have upgraded our outlook for Nigeria, recognizing our improved economic fundamentals. Our stock market is experiencing an unprecedented boom, rising from all-share index of 55,000 points in May 2003 to 142,000 points as of September 26, 2025. At its last MPC meeting, the central bank slashed interest rate for the first time in 5 years, expressing confidence in our country's macroeconomic stability. On security, we are working diligently to enhance national security, ensuring our economic experiences improved growth and performance. The officers and men of our armed forces and other security agencies are working tirelessly and making significant sacrifices to keep us safe. They are winning the war against terrorism, banditry, and other violent crimes. We see their victories in their blood and sweat to stamp out Boko Haram terror in the northeast, IPOB ESN terror in southeast, and banditry and kidnapping. We must continue to celebrate their gallantry and salute their courage on behalf of a grateful nation. Peace has returned to 100 of our liberated communities in the northwest and northeast, and thousands of our people have returned safely to their homes. I have a message for you, you young people. You are the future and the greatest asset of this blessed country. You must continue to dream big, innovate, and conquer more territories in your various fields of science, technology, sport, and art and creative sector. Our administration, through policies and funding, will continue to give you wings to fly sky high. We created NEL Fund to support students with loans for their educational pursuits. Approximately 510,000 students across 32 states of the Federation, including FCT, have benefited from this initiative, covering 228 higher institutions. As of September 10, the total loan disbursed was 99.5 billion, while the upkeep allowance stood as 44.7 billion. Credit Corp, another initiative of our administration, has granted over 153,000 Nigerians 30 billion affordable loans for vehicles, solar energy, home upgrades, digital devices, and more. Youth credit, which I promised last June, is a reality, with tens of thousands of NYSC members now active beneficiaries of consumer credit for resettlement. Under our Renew Hope agenda, we promise to build a Nigeria where every young person, regardless of background, has an equitable opportunity to access a better future. Thus, the investment in digital and creative enterprise, IDICE program, the Bank of Industry, is driving the program in collaboration with the African Development Bank, the French Development Agency, and the Islamic Development Bank. This initiative is at the cusp of implementation. Our last 2 years, we have collaborated with our partners to launch the program, supporting our young builders and dreamers in the technology and creative sector. This is a message of hope, fellow Nigerians. I've always candidly acknowledged that this reform have come with some temporary pains. The biting effects of inflation and the rising cost of living remains a significant concern to our government. However, the alternative of allowing our country to descend into economic chaos or bankruptcy was not an option. Our macroeconomic progress has proven that our sacrifices have not been in vain. Together, We are laying a new foundation cast in concrete, not on quicksand. The accurate measure of our success will not be limited to economic statistics alone, but rather in the food on our family tables, the quality of education our children receive, the electricity in our homes, and the security in our communities. Let me assure you of administration's determination to ensure that the resources we have saved and the stability we have built are channeled into these critical areas. Today, the governors at the state level and the local government's autonomy are yielding more development right in our face. Therefore, on this 65th anniversary of our independence, my message is hope and a call to action. The federal government will continue to do its part to fix the plumbing in our economy. Now, we must all turn on the taps of productivity, innovation, and enterprise, just like the Ministry of Interior has done with our travel passports, by quickening the processing. In this regard, I urge the subnational entities to join us in nation building. Let us be a nation of producers, not just consumers. Let us farm our land and build factories to process our produce. Let us patronize made in Nigeria. I say Nigeria first. All the goods, let us pay our taxes as well. Finally, let all hands be on deck. Let us believe once more in the boundless potential of our great nation. With Almighty God on our side, I can assure you that the dawn of a new, prosperous, self-reliant is here in Nigeria. Happy 65th Independence Anniversary. And may God continue to bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Amen.
Very interesting speech there. Well, it's October 1st, and while the flags fly high and the anthems echo across the land, Nigerians relish the moments that have brought us far. This is very, very important. Most importantly, after hearing the president's speech there. But without further ado, I want to welcome you to Breakfast Central here on a very, very important day in Nigeria. I'm Joe Hansen. Olive is here as well.
And of course, I am Olive Emodi. Nigeria's President Bola Ahmed Tinubu addressed the nation at 7 a.m. today, marking Nigeria's 65th independence anniversary. But as the broadcast fades, reactions have started to pour in from civil society, opposition parties, and everyday Nigerians. This morning, we shall be dissecting the president's speech as we seek to find out how much of it resonates with millions of Nigerians across the country and the world. Joining us for these discussions are the Chief Press Secretary to a former Lagos Governor, Habib Aruna, and Public Affairs Analyst, Dayo Akintobi. Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us, and happy Independence
Day. For being here.
Happy Independence Day to Nigeria.
All right, let's start off with, your general sense of the speech before we go into the details. And to sort of give us a general sense of the speech, I'm going to ask the both of you. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu said our founding heroes and heroines, and goes ahead to list a number of them. And he said they believed it was Nigeria's manifest destiny to lead the entire black race as the largest black nation of the earth. He goes ahead to say, while we may not have achieved all the lofty dreams of our forebears, we have not
strayed too far from them, Mr. Akintobi? Have we strayed too far from them?
We have strayed, but I think we still march along that same path, but we are in a situation where we've not met up to the expectations of those founding fathers. And I think that their perception was that by now we'd be much further ahead than we are. And as the largest black nation, even though when Nigeria was coming out of independence, we weren't the largest, most powerful black nation in the world at that time. But I do believe that our forebears foresaw that happening, and their vision was that 65 years down the road, we'd be a world power because we have everything it takes to do that. And to look at where we are today, 65 years after, when we talk about 65 years of independence, it's not 65 years of existence. We've been existing a whole lot longer than that. And we're actually ordering our affairs, I believe, a lot better before the colonial intervention. But the moment they handed back over reins of power to us in 1960 October, I think we missed the plot in terms of the way we were organized before they came in. I think they came and disrupted our natural way of existence, and we've not recovered ever since. So I think we're a square peg in a round hole trying to fit into this Western-style democracy and do things the way those colonialists taught us to do versus our own homegrown solutions, which actually were working for us very well before the colonial interregnum. Of course, times have changed. There's enlightenment, there's education, technology has played a part, mechanization has played a part. So you can't really compare them on the same denominator, the same common denominator. But I think that some of our founding parents will be turning over in their graves today when they look at where we are. I mean, look at in Abuja just yesterday what happened with the Arise television journalist. The fact that the police could open their mouth to say they didn't have fuel in their vehicle.
In fact, we're hearing conflicting reports. We're hearing that. We're also hearing that the hospital asked for an ID to treat her as well.
All of those dysfunctions. I mean, an innocent rising life was snuffed out just like that, an avoidable death that didn't need to happen. Let's not even look at the security implications of armed robbers invading in 2025 in Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory, that armed robbers could be that brazen in the middle of the seat of government to actually open siege, lay siege on a housing complex that would lead to the death. So many failings. There were so many areas where the government failed that lady. Where we as a people need to look at ourselves and say, what is wrong with us? At 65, how can we still be in a situation where we don't have emergency response to be able to just address a critical situation? In Israel, nobody in the country of Israel is 1 minute away from emergency assistance. We have the means to be like that in Nigeria today, but I call it a state of arrested development. We're developing, but we're developing at snail's pace. I mean, let's be honest, there have been some victories. There have been some bright spots. Chief Obafemi Awolowo, Alhaji Lateef Jakonde, there have been some bright spots in our trajectory of 65 years. We've made some advances, but for every one step we take forward, I think we take like 3 or 4 backwards.
Okay, we'll come back to talk about the bright steps. Looking, first of all, broadly at, our founding fathers and then narrowing it down to the past years with President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. But let me also get the reaction of Mr. Habib Aruna, with the speech in general, your thoughts.
Entire speech.
Every Independence Day, there's always an opportunity for stock taking, for soul searching, for us to look at ourselves as a nation. Where are we right now? Where are we coming from? Are we where we're supposed to be? I will not totally agree with him that because of this colonial intervention, not that we are where we are today. Great nations in the world had the same experience. Except perhaps the European powers, America, India, Pakistan, Brazil, all these nations have colonial experience. But today they've been able to restructure themselves, establish enduring institutions, that are lasting and making sure that the nation is on the right trajectory. But Nigeria, we have failed so far. It's both leadership and followership, they failed.
And if you look at our First Republic, when the colonialists left, when they left, there was hope. In fact, there was a day I interviewed the late Enahoro, the person that moved the mission for independence. I interviewed Enahoro at GRA, Ogunaike. Enahoro told me that when they were campaigning for independence, they were moving around the country, campaigning for independence, then an old man told him in the then Western region, Ondo State, that, are you sure you are ready for independence? By Nahoro, of blessed memory, are you sure you are ready for independence? So if I look back to what is going on now, look at where we are in terms of education, in terms of health, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of our foreign policy. Up till now, there are no ambassadors. The government has been here for 3 years, but there are no ambassadors. How do you run an effective policy without having senior diplomats in the capitals of the world? So I think it's a day for our politicians to search their souls, for our elite to think. If you look at the elite in other countries, the elite, they've been able to put their interest as a servant to national interest. But in our country, we've not been able to have elite that are pragmatic. We have parasitic, capricious elite that are not interested in development. So I'm not to encourage. The speech is a normal routine. You know, the president came up with what the founding fathers had hoped for. You know, yes, the country is one. Thank God for that. But being one and united, you can be pumping champagne when things are very, very bad.
But let's now focus on some aspects of this speech. The president, while talking about a lot of things, he started off with education. And it seems like the entire 30-minute stretch was mixed with a lot of statistics, percentages here and there, things that have been done. Do you think, as an average Nigerian, would a Nigerian wake up in the morning to watch the president? Do you think they would have been filled with hope after listening to that speech? And with so much percentages, numbers flying here and there in terms of what has been done, monies the country has been able to save, the impact and so on, do you think personally that these numbers are what the average Nigerian wants to hear this morning?
The president, if you look at it very well, at the initial stage of his speech, was comparing the numbers of primary and secondary schools before the public to what we have now. Well, partially, there have been progress in that regard. But I was thinking that the president will tie education advancement to technological advancement. If you look at the League of Nations that got independence with Nigeria, look at Singapore, look at Malaysia, look at India. And these countries are up there now. What are we doing? You know, for Nigerians, even a casual observer will not be too impressed with what the president has said. But as a leader of the country, the president has a duty, you know, to reinforce that hope. That is what the man is doing. And I think it should be appreciated. The fact that, yes, we have a country that is still united. We're not there yet, but there's the hope that we get there. The process is on.
Okay. I don't know what your thoughts are, especially on that question.
Well, I thought the speech sounded more like a State of the Union address. I think an Independence Day speech should be a little more broad in terms of history and vision. He started on the right note by harking back to our founding fathers and naming a good number of them. But I think that he was a bit too heavy on what he considered to be the individual achievements of his administration. I don't think this should have been a time to trumpet or champion the achievements, the quote-unquote achievements, especially when those achievements have not translated to meaningful gains on the street. As a journalist, I live on the streets of Nigeria. I interact with everyday Nigerians on a daily basis. And all those statistics, as highfalutin and and really robust as they sound, they are meaningless on the streets of Nigeria today because the average working class Nigerian is still having it very, very difficult. Now, I agree with what Mr. Aruna said, that such a speech is an opportunity to encourage us, to give us hope. And you know that the mantra of this administration has been renewed hope. So the president did use the speech as a means to try to encourage us and tell us to continue to be patient. He said, he has always said that he knows we're going through hard times, but the contradiction with that is that we don't see our political class making the same sacrifices they're asking us to make. I saw a video a couple of days ago of the president's convoy when he came back from Ibadan to Lagos, and how it disrupted traffic in Lagos and how long that convoy was and how many vehicles were in it. Granted, he needs to be kept secure, but there are some things that are over the top and ostentatious, and our political class is not making the sacrifices it's asking Nigerians to make. So when you listen to all these highfalutin statistics, as someone said before, now statistics we go chop, it doesn't translate to food on our table.
Okay, we'll come to talk about, I mean, while you talk about the statistics and how it translates to the everyday Nigerian, I want us to come and talk about the vulnerable Nigerians, the 330 billion naira that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu spoke about. But we'll go on a break, and when we come back, we'll be looking deeper into the conversation. Please stay with us. Still analyzing President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's 2025 Independence Day speech, joined by Mr. Habib Aruna and Mr. Dayo Akintobi. Thank you very much for joining us, gentlemen. Before we went on the break, I said we're going to look at the 330 billion naira that the president said has, been used to disburse funds to about 8 million households in Nigeria. Whenever we hear about these monies, there's a bit of distrust and mistrust that arises as a result. First of all, from you, I don't know if I personally don't know anyone who's received. I don't know if you know anyone or persons or families that have received. Maybe we don't have people within that bracket, I don't know. But what mechanisms do you think should or have been put in place to avoid issues like ghost beneficiaries? And with a country that has about 133 million multidimensionally poor people, how do we ensure that this actually has tangible impact? Maybe I'll start with Mr. Akintobi and then I'll come over to you.
Well, the first thing that makes one a bit hesitant is, how do you define a vulnerable or needy Nigerian individual? How do you compile that social register and make sure it's accurate, make sure that it doesn't have ghost members inside? And then when you've already even screened and shortlisted, how does the disbursement now work? Remember, this was how Betta Edu and the lady before her all got into trouble. It had to do with this notion of doling out money. Whenever there's an issue of largesse being given, there's always a specter of corruption coming in, especially in our country. And that has always given rise to distrust. As you said, I'm not aware of any Nigerian who has received any of this money, but that could be that because we're in slightly different economic brackets, who knows? But by and large, if you ask any Nigerian on the street, do you trust in this process that they are giving money out? What you hear is, it's all political. They're giving to the children of their friends. They are political people, or they are using it to siphon funds, and they're not actually doing this, because 330 billion is a lot of money. And the way the disbursements work, the most vulnerable Nigerians are largely the unbanked, largely. So it's not as if you can do transfers and there is a digital trail of how the money flowed. So by and large, they're probably going to the central bank, taking bullion van loads of raw cash and going into the hinterland to sit and count 1,000 naira in so many places and hand out to each person. It's fraught with the specter of mismanagement. And that probably is why we take with a grain of salt the fact that 330 billion. What impact has the 330 billion had on the so-called recipients? Do you see improvement in the lives of our vulnerable, those of our people who are less privileged, who don't have health care, who don't have education, farmers who can't go to their farms? What if the 330 billion actually served the purpose for which it was intended and got to the actual proper recipients? We should see a bit of a difference in the lives of our vulnerable. And I dare say, I don't think their lot is getting any better as we speak.
I don't know if Mr. Brown has received
I don't particularly belong to that kind of class. But when I share sentiments on this matter. When I listen to these bogus numbers and figures, I have to pitch myself, am I in Nigeria? You know, because don't forget that the lady that served as humanitarian minister under the late Buhari, the lady is still being investigated by EFCC. So the process, the mechanism, the qualification, everything is shrouded in secrecy. There is no transparency in the way and manner these figures are disbursed. How do you qualify for it? Who are the beneficiaries? And I can't find them. And if people like us cannot find them, then who are they? Are they ghosts? Are they spirit? So this thing is not, to me, it's another way of embezzling funds, mismanaging the resources of the country. You know, don't forget that after the woman was removed, Professor Shibajo became the person in charge, and he was later removed by, in quotes, the cabal and the Buhari presidency. So this kind of amount, when you mention it, don't like test fund. I've not seen the beneficiary of test fund. I'm still waiting. Maybe Mr. Dayo can tell us one or two. I've not seen it. So when there is no transparency, when there is no accountability, when people that are supposed to ask questions at the National Assembly are busy following the president up and down, then we have problem. You know, this kind of thing should be transparent. If it's transparent and people that are in charge are people that have enough credibility, that will ensure that yes, we can believe in it, we can trust that yes, that nothing has been done. But in this regard, I don't seem to believe it, and I think the figures are bogus. It's not convincing, you know. Okay. Not convincing at all.
We'll see that, you know, at 65, Nigeria's democracy is still struggling with weak institutions and corruption, and you can't have that and then talk about a thriving democracy. Do you think that this speech adequately addressed institutional reforms, or was it focused mainly squarely on the economy? Do you think that it spoke to, you know, corruption, the weak institutions, and, you know, how we can further strengthen our democracy?
You see, what is killing this country is three things. One is corruption. Second one is corruption. And third one is corruption.
But the president said that corruption is
my personal opinion. My personal opinion. And I'm 4 years younger than this country. So I should know the major problem we have. When this guy came here one time, Odenga, the president of Kenya, the guy was saying that in some countries, when they give contracts, the government officials will collect 10%. But in Nigeria, they collect 90%. He said it openly. What is killing us is corruption. Let me give you an instance about institutions. When Absalami took over and Abacha died, General Ahigbe was the deputy to Absalami. General Ahigbe invited senior journalist, Professor Smith in VI. And Ahigbe was telling them implicitly that we are on a mission to install, that the military is involved, is interested in this transition. In other words, want to install General Obasanjo, retired. And we believe that Obasanjo can be our own Mandela. And by so doing, according to him, they want to make sure that we build institutions. Obasanjo had history, the capacity, he had the experience, and he had the clout to put Nigeria on the right course, on a sound footing for development and growth. Obasanjo became the president. What happened? Obasanjo was not interested in building institutions. It's a major problem. Advanced countries in the world, they have problem. It's normal in their course of developing. There will be landmines on road development. But there are institutions in those countries that guard against human beings that are too powerful. Those countries invent themselves in the process of development because there are some institutions. So our major problem as a nation at 65, because we don't have We don't have viable, we don't have enduring institutions, that protect the country and secure its future. We don't have those things. So it's the major and something we must address as a nation, because we are still falling short in that. Nigeria must develop institutions. That's why we protect our democracy. We protect our country, as against any marauders. So it's a problem we are facing and we continue to face, except we are determined. We make that deliberate effort and build and nurture our institutions. Very key to our future.
Very tough one in trying to merge between what is happening on ground and what the president had said, especially in the aspect of realities. But you also talked about permit me to still stick on the funds, the transfers that have been given to people. You've talked about those who merit, who deserve to receive these funds. Obviously, it's also highlighted that these are the poorest of the poor. But do you think that doling out these funds is necessary at this point, looking at the fact that Nigerians are still struggling to even survive, basically? And one aspect I want us to also look at in this speech is where the president had also said, I talked about credit core. That's another one where he did mention that 153,000 Nigerians have benefited, over 30 billion as well. Are we seeing too much money in the system going round?
Well, one of the things I thought about in terms of following Nel Fund and Credit Core is they seem to be doling out the money quite generously. And I keep asking, are there plans put in place to recover the money? Because the average Nigerian student that's collecting Nel Fund is seen as a grant. They're not really believing that one day I'll have to pay this money back. And I see the reports from Nel Fund, how much was disbursed to a particular university on a given day, and they're not cutting corners or holding anything back in terms of pushing the money out. And I just worry that, is the mechanism in place to make sure the money will come back? And when you talk about going back to that 330 billion in terms of the vulnerable, and should that kind of money be given out at this point in time, I've never believed in palliatives as a means to lifting anybody out of poverty. It's a one-time, one-off, solve your immediate problem, but it's not a long-term solution. So that money probably could have been better spent if it was invested in teaching them how to fish so they can feed themselves for life, as opposed to feeding them for a day and then tomorrow they're hungry again. So I'm not sure that palliatives represent a means of changing the fortunes of the less privileged. So even those who received the money, if they did receive it, they're probably hungry again today already and have nowhere to turn. So how have they benefited?
I mean, he said they've received it. He said in his speech, in a sentence, he said either 1 or 2 times in the trenches, they've received 5,000 naira.
And what does that do in Nigeria of today? When you know what the price of a bag of rice, a bag of beans, even just transportation from one place to the other, we know what it costs. So 5,000, even in the rural areas, 5,000 doesn't go very far these days. And whether you got it once or you got it twice, you're still hungry after a month or two. So I'm not sure it's the most appropriate intervention in terms of economic relief or in terms of trying to empower the people and take them out of poverty. I believe this administration at the onset said one of its goals was to remove a certain number of Nigerians out of poverty within so many years, and I don't really see any concerted efforts to making that happen per se. I'll go back to it again and say that the speech was supposed to electrify minds and galvanize hearts into believing that a better Nigeria is around the corner. It now seems to be hollow words because we've been hearing this for the last 2.5 years, 28 months, and with each passing day, the statistics are reeled out that paint a lofty picture, but the reality on ground is very, very different.
Okay, I want us to talk about security, as that's a very key issue and area to explore. I'm going to read an excerpt from the president's speech. He talked about the officers and men of our armed forces and other security agencies are working tirelessly and making significant sacrifices to keep us safe. He says they are winning the war against terrorism, banditry, and other violent crimes. We see their victories in their blood and sweat to stamp out Boko Haram terror in Northeast, IPOB ESN terror in Southeast, and banditry and kidnapping. We must continue to celebrate their gallantry and salute their courage on behalf of a grateful nation.
peace has returned to hundreds of our liberated communities in Northwest and Northeast, and thousands of our people have returned safely to their homes. Mr. Akintobi, do you agree with this?
No, I don't. I don't think Nigeria will agree with the fact that Nigeria is at peace today, or that insecurity has reduced. On a daily basis, we keep hearing about more and more incidents. Yesterday, it was, of course, the incident in Abuja. A few days before that, it was Zamfara. A few days before that, it was Benue. Then there's Katsina and Kwara. Kwara was really terrible. I saw a woman on a video yesterday crying about her husband. Kwara was really, really bad. And the worrisome part is that Kwara is coming to the south.
Yeah.
Kwara is the beginning of the south of Nigeria. So they've spread themselves all across the north. It looks like now they're moving southward, because I think there have been some incidents in Benin as well in the recent past. So it seems like all of Nigeria is vulnerable at this point in time, and this insecurity is not something new. We've been battling Boko Haram since the days of President Jonathan. And you would ask yourself that, why is this thing so difficult to arrest in terms of an entire government, the coercive apparatus of government that resides in the military, the army, the air force, the navy, the paramilitary forces, the police? How can it be impossible for them to have arrested this scourge in 15, 20 years? It boggles my mind that a ragtag group of disorganized people can overwhelm or be superior to our trained, funded, and adequately motivated fighting forces.
Are they really adequately motivated?
Well,
because they're also concerned. There's another video. There are videos here and there. Some would also say it's an old video.
Yes.
But we've seen members of the security forces come out to say they are poorly paid. Some have highlighted the fact that the conditions in which they are, in order to just protect lives and properties, is very difficult. The police recently protested. I was thinking the president will also address that. Many thought it would be one of the things he would address. That the police, we know security operatives, we're going to look into your wages to ensure that you earn more. But that wasn't mentioned. Rather, the president mentioned the local government, which always is a reference point to any of the conversations around the economy. They say the governors have more money. And the president said that today as well, that the governors have more money. But let's take Lagos, for instance, a ₦1 trillion economy in terms of its GDP, internal generated revenue. And other governors, are we seeing that governors having more money trickle down to its citizens, Mr. Aruna?
On the issue of insecurity,
Yeah.
I will not give the government below 50%. I'll give the government maybe 60%. If you are not there, you won't know what is going on. You know what they are facing. I think the president is doing his best to ensure Nigeria have a secured country, but more needs to be done in Zamfara State, in Plateau State, Benue, and Niger. More needs to be done. But some of these things are political. If you scratch the surface, some of it are political. But I think they are doing their best. Then on the money available to governors and local government chairmen, local government chairmen are still under the use and crack prices of the governor. They are not independent.
I thought the president would address that as
They
well.
cannot be dependent on the current structure we have. They cannot. The president is saying that the state government are collecting more money. Before we are collecting 4 billion, now we are collecting 9 billion. They have enough money to spend, right, to work, to take care of people's welfare, education, infrastructure, roads, security. Are they doing that? No. And can the president control them? No. Because we have 2037 elections in the front. After that election, I can bet on it, the president will control them. We call them to order. How much are you spending? Why people still suffering? These are the things. But now we have money. Look at the governor of Ebonyi State.
So which election, just to clarify, which election are you speaking about?
Pardon?
You said we have elections. Which of the elections are you talking about?
2027.
And you say after that the president will go into
After that election, you can see that the president will be more assertive in asking questions.
This is you just already concluding that the president has won
I'm a political
elections.
writer. The president cannot, president is handicapped in asking questions now on enforcing.
Why?
Because of the next election.
He needs them.
The state governors are very, very powerful in this kind of situation because of peculiarity, the nature and character of Nigerian politics. They're very powerful. They can make or mark. Go ask Jonathan. What was Jonathan? So these are the things. So the president is being circumspect and smart. Okay, you have more money, spend it. By the time you collect Aso Rock, you're not spending this money. People are not feeling it. They're collecting more money from the federal government. I was thinking that you translate to bread and butter for Nigerians. So if you're blaming the federal government, at times we should tarry a while and look at the state government, what they are doing. State governors and emperors. Nobody asks them questions. And how in the democracy, you'll be accountable and responsible to the people through the assembly. But in the states, that's not the case. So if the money is coming in, how is the money spent? Rather, we are seeing them building, renewing their government houses, building airports that are not something that are, for now, they do not benefit the people. So these are the things we must look at. As a nation, as I said, we must have institutions. In the First Republic, we have strong institutions. Can't just mess up. Second Republic, largely better. Because in some states, we have a party controlling the executive, another party controlling the legislature. But in Nigeria of today, the same party control the organs of government, and that will be to the detriment of the people.
Okay, just to also go back, I want to go back to the question about insecurity. And I've asked you this question, I think, during the week when we're having the newspaper review. I want to bring Mr. Akintobi on it. Over the weekend, Ryan Garcia, a professional American boxer, had taken to his Instagram to offer help to Nigerian Christians who are purportedly being killed by killings. I'm going to quote it. He says, "Does anyone know how I can help the people of Nigeria? Christians are getting slaughtered and eradicated at crazy numbers. If you haven't heard about it, go look it up. As Christians and just humans, we need to try and help," he added in the post. And, you know, this had a lot of reactions. There have been the back and forth, and that has now sparked the conversation about, that was, one. But recently, there's been a lot more conversations about the possibility of religious genocide or not. And I wanted to get your take on it. Is that a proper conversation to have? Do we have adequate facts and data to inform us of whether or not there is a genocide of Christians in Nigeria?
This whole thing started by an American broadcaster named Bill Maher, who came out and on one of his shows said that there was systematic slaughtering of Christians in Nigeria. And of course, as you would imagine, that created a lot of uproar because he's viewed as a credible journalist. So a lot of people accepted what he said on face value. However, in reviewing what has happened in Nigeria in terms of our insecurity in the last 15, 20 years, I don't think bandits, terrorists, kidnappers, I don't think they've been discriminating as to who they're victimizing. They equally go in churches, they go in mosques, they pick people up on the expressway. I don't think at the point of interdiction, they start asking you what religion you are. I think that as far as they're concerned, when they're on an operation, whoever is in their path is a potential victim. For the kidnappers, it's all about economic reward, who can afford to pay the ransom or have the ransom paid on their behalf. And for Boko Haram, if it is this notion of a repudiation of Western education and we want everyone to conform to our ideology, I think that they spread their net as wide as they can and they don't discriminate among their victims. So I think it's more of propaganda and perhaps for political purposes in terms of trying to make it seem like there's a genocide at play here. That serves to fragment us and cause division. We're already a divided nation, politically and otherwise. And when this type of rhetoric starts to gain ground, it further creates greater division when you look like the religions are at war with each other. When it says that Christians are being specifically targeted in some areas of the country. Look at Southern Kaduna, for example, which is known to be very, very Christian and strongly so. And you see instances of terrorism occurring in that area. And even if it is a coincidence, simply because that place is more largely populated by Christians and that is where the operation was carried out, so naturally, based on the numbers, more Christians will be affected there. But likewise, when they go to Zamfara, which is more Muslim or almost completely Muslim, and carry out an operation there, the victims will be Muslim. So it's all in the statistics and how you interpret them. But I will not agree with the fact that there is a concerted, active, focused, systematic onslaught of Christians in Nigeria. That's not to say Christians have not been affected,
Correct.
but I think everybody across the board, irrespective of religion, is just as vulnerable.
All right. Let's now connect with our correspondent. If you're just joining in, the president, of course, did give his Independence Day speech for 2025 this morning at 7 a.m. And our State House correspondent, Bettina Nweli, will be on standby to give us a recap of this speech. And after that, we'll come back to speak some more about it. Good morning, Bettina. How is the state capital this morning?
Good morning, Ole. Thank you so much. And happy Independence Day to everyone in the studio. We've heard from the president this morning, and I have 6 key takeaway points that I want to share with the team regarding what the president said during his speech. Now, first of all, he talked about economic recovery. Now, according to the president, our GDP has grown by 4.23% in the second quarter of 2025. Now, according to him, he says this is the fastest in the last 4 years, while inflation has dropped to 20.12%. I would love to visit the street to talk to people to find out if truly this inflation decrease has affected their pockets and their homes generally. But the second point he made was on foreign reserves and trade. Now, according to the president as well, he says that reserves have risen from $42.03 billion, I beg your pardon, and Nigeria recorded a trade surplus of 5 straight quarters, with non-oil exports reaching 48% of total exports. Another thing he also touched on was on oil and gas. He said oil output rebounded from 1.68 million barrels per day. Domestic PMS refining resumed after 40 years. We can testify to that. And that Nigeria also became Africa's leading exporter of aviation fuel. That is another aspect too that we would have to also look into. Another thing he spoke about was social investments. Now, over $330 billion have been disbursed to 8 million vulnerable households. Now, whenever we talk about this, people are always of the question that, oh, I didn't get anything, and I also think I'm a vulnerable person living in Nigeria. But we'll continue to look into that, because when they say that they have shared this amount of money to vulnerable households, one cannot but question, where are these households? Who are these people? How are they receiving this money? Over and over, we keep hearing about this money being disbursed, but we've never really seen anyone who would come out and take accountability to say, okay, yes, I was a beneficiary of such disbursement. He also spoke about security. He spoke about security progress. According to the president, armed forces have regained territories, restoring peace to parts of the northeast and northwest. But just a few days or weeks ago, we heard about a situation that happened in Benue State, where a school had an explosion and a couple of people are still missing. We're still following up on that story. Even though I could say that security is a bit better, but there's more that the government can do in terms of security. We hear about people, being robbed in their homes and being killed. This is something that shouldn't happen in a sane nation. Last but not the least, the president also gave a message of hope, declaring that the worst is over. So I want to believe that going forward, it's going to be all cherries and nothing gloomy.
Very interesting roundup there from you, Bettina Nweli. And I would have loved to ask what Abuja is like not having the president and not having the all-important October 1 ceremony. Can you quickly, in just 10 seconds, because we have a break to catch, can you tell us what the residents are saying, the people in Abuja are saying, because they were expecting a match pass and all that, but it never happened. Can you tell us?
Okay, well, first of all, people are talking about the absence of the president in Abuja, the seat of power. For years, we haven't seen any president celebrate the Independence Day outside of Abuja, but this time around, the president says that he wanted a low-key celebration. They had drawn out a list of activities that will be done, but at last minute, it was cancelled. And as you can see, the town is peaceful, business as usual. There is really no difference, apart from barricades they have made in certain points from the Villa down to the Eagle Square, no passage through all of that route. But other than that, everything is calm as usual.
All right, we can see everything is calm as usual, because even it's bright and sunny where you are in Abuja, and we here had to swim to work. So happy Independence Day, happy New Month, Bettina. Thank you for that roundup.
Same.
All right, we'll go on a quick break. When we come back, we still will be analyzing the president's speech this morning. Once again, happy Independence Day, Nigeria.
Thanks for staying with us here on our special broadcast here on News Central's Breakfast Central. We're taking a look at Nigeria at 65. We do have the distinguished guests who are still here with us, seasoned, you could say, journalists, and of course, analysts who are here to talk about the president's speech. In case you missed the president's speech, a lot was said. You can hurry up to our website and you'd see all of that, but we've been analyzing it from one break to the other. And the gentlemen are still here with us. Later on, we'll also be joining Olive. But let's quickly go to our reporter, who is at a very critical, I'd say, important place, which you cannot take away when it comes to history and Nigeria getting to where it is today. Thank you so much for joining us. It's quite interesting to note that behind you there's a writing, and I hope that you could pan later on while you're talking to us. We do have our correspondent who's joining us from Kogi State. Kogi is a significant place, and Nigerians will find out why. Go ahead, Mana, and tell us what's going on there in Kogi. And I can see your old smiles. Go ahead.
All right. Good morning, Joe. Good morning, Olive, and to our guests in the studio. Happy Independence Day to all Nigerians watching. Well, 1,503 feet above sea level, and this is Mount Party in Lokoja, Kogi State. And just behind me, you can see the rest house of Lord Lugard. The inscription on the building says Lord Lugard Rest House. And just by the side, if you can see, is a statue of Lord Lugard and his beloved wife, Flora Shaw, the London journalist of the Times of London. And do recall that she is the lady that coined the word Niger area, putting it together to form Nigeria. Now, just in front of me, I may not be able to pan right now. Of course, the vegetation, the trees are covering the view to actually see the River Niger itself and just a beautiful shot of the entire city of Lokoja. This is a very historic place. This is where Lord Lugard will climb up, that's down from the bottom of the mountain and come up to Mount Party to view the city. And of course, some of his administrative work was done from here. Just let me just pan the camera a bit. Behind me, when you move forward, you can see that there is a road path, almost 60 steps. If you move forward, is a broadcast center. Well, the place is, it is not a place to behold right now because over the years, the building has deteriorated. There is a broadcast center where the audio visuals was communicated to the Queen of England. So from there, Lugard will rest here and then go there to speak with the Queen of England. And of course, Lord Lugard is the first High Commissioner for Northern Nigeria before it was moved to Kaduna. The capital was moved to Kaduna. So Mount Party holds a very special place in terms of the history of Nigeria. And from this mountain, you can actually go down to the present-day government house in Lokoja. There is a path, but that path, we can't go there. It's just some distance away from where I am. From that particular point of this mountain, you can get down to the government house in Lokoja. Also, you would recall there was a prison back in the day where some of the deposed emirs of the north were captured. Their graves are still there today. And from this mountain, you can actually get to Kabawa community right here in the state capital. And from this mountain, there is a path that links to that particular place. So this mountain holds a whole lot of significance, and it is just amazing. It's a beautiful sight to behold. Joe, Olive, anytime you guys are in Kogi State or Lokoja, you should come up here. It's so beautiful. Very early this morning, as the custom is for residents in Lokoja, many of them, they jog up to the mountain, to exercise. And also, earlier I spoke with some residents and also tourists who came here. They actually entered into the building. I think I will just walk closely to where the building is so we can have a closer look at Lugard's Rest House. The building itself is not open right now, but I'm just trying to make my way. It's bushy right here, but I think I'll just pan the camera so that you can see the entrance to the guardhouse. So I think, yes, this is the entrance. This is a refurbished building. In the process of rebuilding this particular relic, the state government ensured that they used local materials. As you can see closely, stones were used to recreate the building to look exactly like how it was back in the day. So this is just a close look. So you can see the inscription there. It says Lugard Rest House. Then just beside the building is a statue. I hope I can give you a very good close-up of what it looks like. So just behind me, okay, let's see if I can do this right. Yeah, so that's a closer look at Lord Lugard and his wife, Flora Shaw. So they would come out and hand out, they used to be boyfriend. I mean, they had a relationship before he officially married her. But that's like that, Joe. This is the particular place where Flora Shaw, the London journalist of the Times of London, was inspired to coin the word Nigeria. And this is very significant because there's a lot of reactions as to who we are as a country, our identity as a nation. And a lot of people attribute the amalgamation of the Southern and Northern Protectorate as the foundation of some of the structural issues and problems that we have as a nation. So this is where it all started. And I know a lot of Nigerians are still indifferent. Some people feel we were better separate together. But of course, that particular decision by the British government still affects us still today. Back to you, Joe.
I want to say thank you so much, Mana Balagbobo, for this very interesting coverage, taking us back to exactly where it all started from. Coincidentally, while you were speaking, I was almost thinking that you could have coined the speech for the president, because you really did take us back into history and highlighting some of the key aspects that would actually give Nigerians a sense of belonging and possibly hope as well. But we'll get back to you, hopefully in the course of our broadcast. Thanks for joining us, and ensure that you take more footage, and you could also join the others in jogging while we'll get back to you later on. Thanks for speaking with us, Mana.
You're welcome. I'll try to do that.
Absolutely. Well, before we go to our guests here and also get to join Olive, who's also going to be talking to another political personality, let's quickly see how Nigerians are reacting to that presidential speech that took place this morning. Truth be told, 001 says, this so-called independence speech from Tinubu is just recycled propaganda. Really? Well, that's what he says. 4.23% GDP growth. Where's the food on our tables? Inflation at 20% is still choking us. And no live question and answer. Shaking my head. More like a dictator's monologue, truth be told. Anyway, let's see some more. Bring all the independence speeches from 1961 to date, and you will easily see that they are the same story. Very unfortunate country. Well, I don't really agree with that. A beautiful country called Nigeria, but led by political corrupt criminals. What a bad luck to the citizens of Nigeria. Shame, shame, shame. I'm hoping we'll get to see one positive response, because we've been combing the entire space of eggs. And Bayo says, Bayo, I'm still trying to figure out these humongous amount of about 330 billion. Now that's the highlight of the speech, I want to believe, said to be spent on 8 million or so persons. Can't we get the detailed official publication of who these people are? This is a question we've discussed this morning in the studio. We do not know if you are one of those. And let's take one more before we go straight to the conversation. Bayo, tell Baba to share that 20 trillion generated from that oil sector to every Nigerian. We don't want any project any longer. Just share, make everybody collect their own share. That's all. Kawaii. That's all on what Nigerians are saying so far. We'll bring you some more. Our producers are combing the internet, and I can tell you I'm doing the same right here. Positive in terms of how Nigerians are reacting to what the president has said. If we're going to peg it between 1 to 10, we'll say the positives are slightly just 2.5, so 2.5. The remaining 7.5 Nigerians on X, the social media space, are saying they are not impressed with that speech because it did not highlight anything. I'm going to go straight to let's just do a rating. How would you rate the president's speech from 1 to 10? And can you give reasons when you pick a number?
Yes, I would give him about a 3.5 because I think the entire purpose, if you look at the whole 2025 Independence Day symbolic meaningfulness, from the fact that the parade was cancelled, to the fact that the president is not in Abuja, the seat of the capital, to his speech. If you look at all three of them together, you would say that Nigeria, let me put it this way, the feature we just saw of Lord Lugard's residence in Kogi State, I would say is a metaphor for Nigeria's dysfunction. You look at that place and its historical significance, and it's not been made into a monument that can serve for archival purposes, historical purposes, and even tourism. You would expect that either the state or the federal government would have developed that place and would preserve it as a memento of our history and where we came from and who we are today. Lord Lugard played a significant role in the amalgamation that led to who Nigeria is today. And you look at where all this was figured out and put on paper in its dilapidated state, and it kind of harkens me to where Nigeria is today. That's why I say it's a good metaphor. And when I look at what surrounds this particular independence, why I said 3.5 to the president, I'm not happy with the fact that the Independence Day parade was cancelled. They didn't give a reason.
Correct.
I know that in the past we've cancelled it before for security concerns. But in this particular instance, they didn't say it was for security. They didn't give us a reason. They just cancelled it. Now that parade is an opportunity for social cohesion. It's a time when we all come together. We're no longer APC, PDP. We're not Muslim. We're not Christian. We're not Arsenal or Chelsea fans. We are all Nigerians.
Correct.
And at that moment, it's national pride,
Correct.
it's patriotism. You see Nigeria at its best, the military parade, the salutes, the releasing of the doves,
Correct.
you know, the salute, the march past, students come out, the military comes out. So that is an opportunity where we all unify around a cause. And at that one moment, we're all Nigerians. We put aside our differences. So for it not to have happened for a concrete reason, there might be a concrete reason, but we were not told. For it not to have happened, it leaves a bit of a vacuum, an emptiness in us, that this was an opportunity. That to me is what will really renew our optimism.
Correct.
That would have been an opportunity to really give us this renewed hope. And we let that opportunity slip through our fingers. Then the president not being in Abuja on such a historic, momentous occasion. This president seems to want to do things his own way and eschew tradition. Look, for example, he hasn't been to Onga the last 2 times, which President Buhari in his whole 8 years went every single time. This president, I felt like, well, I can delegate the responsibility. I'm not going to go, and he didn't go. My colleague, Mr. Aruna, was talking while we were on a break about how this president unilaterally changed the national anthem without consultation. And you ask yourself that he's marching to the beat of his own drummer. He's not following precedent or tradition.
I'm going to just pause just a little bit in this conversation.
Yes.
We'll go on a quick break. When we come back,
Okay.
I'll just also allow Mr. Aruna to share his thoughts and his ratings as well. 3.5.
3.5.
Let's see what Nigerians will continue to say as well. We'll go on a quick break. We'll be right back. Stay with us. It's Breakfast Central. Welcome back and thanks for joining us on this special broadcast here on Breakfast Central. Taking a look at October 1st, Nigeria's independence, the presidential speech and the analysis that indeed does follow. Nigerians are not in any way really pleased with the president's speech. Just taking a look at that using our internal database, we can rightly say that there seems to be a cross-section of Nigerians who may be pleased, but the percentage is very, very little. But we'll keep looking at it. But earlier on, Mr. Akintobi, who's our in-house guest, had talked about scoring the presidential speech, 3.5 over 10. Let's go to Mr. Aruna. How would you score the presidential speech? And what would you say about Nigerians' reaction to that?
Well, as a journalist, I will score the president 50% for the speech. Because we have to look at the president's speech in the context of the realities on ground. Those realities are not good enough. They are not too palatable. Palatable at all. Well, first of all, let me appreciate your reporter that displayed, that show us what is going on in Kogi State.
Kogi State, manner.
This symbolism cannot be lost in all of us. You know, that was where Nigeria was made. It is unfortunate that nothing was nowhere kept for decades. If you go to Washington, D.C., the last farewell address of George Washington to the American people, more than 200 years ago, is still there in the glass. You see it. That was a classic address by the first US president, George Washington. It's still there. But Nigeria, how many years down the line, we've not been able to keep our history. If you cannot keep your history, you cannot shape your future. So what we have seen is, look at the state of that building. We saw that man, the guy that was in charge of amalgamating the country, the South and the North, and his girlfriend that named this country Nigeria. Our children don't even know what is going on. We are opportune to know it because we went to public schools. Most of our children today are not aware of what is going on. That the first capital of Nigeria was Lokoja. And that was where Lord Lugard signed the amalgamation of Nigeria. They are not aware of our history. You know, so if you look at that, if you look at it from 1960, you know, till now, look at the interregnum of the military that took us backward. Look at when the civilian came in. Even when the civilian came in 1999, you know, we still have the relics of the military. If you look at the way, look at cabinet chamber in Abuja, in Aso Rock, look at the way the president will sit. Then then check the state government. The capital is Nigeria. Even in Lagos, the governor will sit as a king, not like the president in Abuja. Then look at it, just suppose it with other countries. What do you have in UK? What do you have in America? The president will sit down with his cabinet on the same table. There's no high horse. So those are the list that we took, not to enviable from our military past. But I am not surprised that if you aggregate the comments of Nigerians on this speech, it will not be good enough. Because they themselves know, even politicians know that we are not where we are supposed to be. You know, are we heading there? I don't know. I have a different opinion. You know, are things being put in place to make sure we are there? That is debatable. But as on step that this president took on the economy, that to me, very good. Look at the exchange rate, look at the stock exchange. People are raising billions from their shares. Look at the removal of subsidies. Yes, painful, but something that we need to do. It's a tonic that needs to be to give to Nigerians. So I won't say these are good, but I think we are getting there.
All right.
Little.
All right. I want to say thank you so much, Mr. Akintobi, and also Mr. Aruna, for joining us this morning. I'm going to join Olive, who's right in the newsroom. Olive, it's over to you. I don't know what's cooking in the newsroom, but I'm sure that there must be news that we can use.
And thank you very much, gentlemen, in the studio for a very wonderful conversation there. Now, we're bringing it back here as Nigeria marks 65 years of independence. It's not possible to ignore the dramatic evolution of Nigeria's political landscape from our parliamentary mode to a now presidential mode, from the regional developments that we've had and seen in the past 65 years. We will agree that a lot has happened in terms of determining what our political trajectory is, the disruptions that have happened, as well as the deliberate reforms. Today we're going to be exploring the role of the judiciary and ethnic divisions that we currently have to battle as a nation, even as we inch further towards the dream of a truly democratic country. I'm joined this morning by the Lagos State gubernatorial candidate of the Labour Party, who is no longer with the Labour Party. I'm sure we're talking about that much later. I'm talking of Gbadebo Rhodes-Vivour. Good morning. Thank you very much for joining us.
Happy Independence Day.
Happy Independence Day to you. Green, white, green.
I know, right?
Let's start with the speech this morning, the speech of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. He spoke about a lot, the economy, he spoke about security, and he said the worst is over. Do you believe?
I mean, when did the killings happen in Kwara State? I don't think anybody can say the worst is over. I read the speech, and it was just a collection of hypocrisy and contradictions. At the end of the speech, I recall he said he was talking about buying meat in Nigeria, Nigeria first, and all of that. And I was just thinking back to the convoys that I've seen him move across Nigeria and in Abuja. And I was thinking, if those cars were all made in Nigeria, can you imagine kind of advertisements that would bring and how that would boost local car manufacturers in Nigeria?
So if your vision is made in Nigeria, you are the number one citizen of Nigeria, and the government is actually supposed to amplify made in Nigeria, that is what you will think to do. Or you will not put that in your speech, right? And just say, you know what, you're going to use Japanese cars and American cars, or don't talk about made in Nigeria. But that's just one small example of the contradictory nature of that speech, or the attempts to push away the buck of poor policy implementation that has happened with the APC government, and trying to separate himself from that, talking about how they successfully put aside the ways and means. Meanwhile, this was a man that was telling President Buhari to print more naira and suspend VAT, you know, for the country to manage the economy. That was his idea of how the economy can be managed. So the entirety of the APC is complicit in the failure that Nigeria has experienced in over the last decade, right? And that's my opinion on it. A government came in through propaganda, and they're trying to sustain their perception by propaganda.
What are the areas that you think he should have spoken to in the speech that you think were not adequately addressed? Yes, whilst you may not agree with some of the facts that he had presented in the speech, were there areas that you had expected that the president would speak to that he didn't speak to?
But you cannot speak to your failure, right? In the sense that you have to do the work to be able to speak to it. If not, you just create lies and contradictions and try to cover up the failure and just more of the same propaganda, right? So if you've done the job you're supposed to do, if we've created a fleet of vehicles that are powered by CNG and they are bringing in food from the rural area and it's reducing the cost of food coming to urban centers and food inflation has come down, you will speak about that. But you can't because you've not implemented that policy, right? You will speak to refineries up and running and the cost of our fuel coming significantly lower, kerosene, and all these things that people that are suffering actually spending their hard-earned money on. If you were able to achieve that, as you said you would, because we spend so much money on refineries, and now it seems like the refineries are not working, and they've given up on it. And the thing is, because the propaganda is just in your face constantly, you don't even know what narrative to believe, right? A is B, B is C. You can't even keep track for the most part, you know. So he would do what somebody that has failed at something will do, which is cover it up, or come out and be honest about it, right? But then even being honest about it is not enough because the buck stops at your table. The extent of corruption that's going on in this country, you are giving out monies to people saying that you are trying to help the poverty and the suffering people are dealing with. How are those people selected? What's the transparency of that process? How's that process being audited? We had a humanitarian affairs minister and a number of people that have been fingered or pointed out as moving funds that are supposed to help Nigerians, right, to personal accounts. What has happened to those people? How have they been brought to book? What systems have we put in place to prevent that from happening again? You see, so it's just more of the same, and you find there isn't really much to celebrate today. Again, we should be in a period of mourning. You know, there's so many people dying unnecessarily, right? You looked at what happened in Kwara State. Like, what is going on with our army? You know, why are they not funded the way they should be funded? What's the level of surveillance that we have in this country? We're in a time where you can use drones to monitor things. You can use and you can use that to gather intelligence. There's new technology you can use. Why are these things not happening? Why is there so much conspiracy about the army not doing what they're supposed to do to prevent these murders from happening or taking charge? So we are a country that has not achieved a singular purpose in terms of what our vision for Nigeria is, right? And that comes through. And it's very unfortunate because this comes at the cost of a lot of lives and destinies being destroyed in this country.
28 months of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu in office, and we hear over and again how of these policies that have been put in place to better improve the quality of life for Nigerians will need some more time to kick into effect. Is that not an argument enough? Because even as recently as this week, we have spoken with people who would say that the economy is going in an upward trajectory. We'll come to politics, but I just want us to put a lid on this, and then we'll come into politics. That the economy is going in an upward trajectory, and even from the numbers and the statistics that the president had read out in today's speech, they're saying a little more time. That Q1, in fact, we had a guest who said Q1 of 2026, we should see a fully functional economy in the sense that the average everyday Nigerian expects to see that. Is that something that you maybe can see some sense?
If I come in here and I destroy this entire studio, right, and then 3 months later I come and put these tables back, and I'm telling you, look, I've put these tables back. You are supposed to clap for me and celebrate me. These people met the dollar to naira at 700 naira. Buhari met the dollar at 160, 200. I look back at Facebook posts and tweets where we were so angry that the dollar had gotten up to 200 naira. We were so angry, like, this man must go, these leaders must go. You find the situation where the current leadership of the APC, they were calling protests, occupying Nigeria for 200 naira. It just sounds like a joke to me right now, because I remember under the PDP I was changing 4,000 pounds for £1 million naira. Now you can barely get how much? You can barely get 500 pounds for £1 million naira now, right? Like, so it's an epic failure. These people came in on the goodwill of Nigerians that were going to make Nigeria better, not plunge it into chaos and expect us to clap for them that now the dollar is 1,500 from a high of 1,900, and we should be happy that this is a new normal. Okay, you've removed subsidies. How are you using that money to benefit the people? How are their lives? What is your vision for Nigerians? What's your bigger vision? The report earlier on was showing what's happening in Kogi in terms of the Lord Lugard Center and all of that. Like, a country of people that have vision, that will not happen, right? And it's just very unfortunate. Even when you look at it, the level of the political patronage that has allowed for the amount of division and insidious sort of attacks, tribal attacks on each other, that's destroying the cohesion of this country, right? That's another thing to talk about, because in his speech he talked about, a needless war that happened. A needless war, yet your prodigies are just going around trying to destroy the national fabric of this country, just to sow distraction so that people don't actually talk about the issues, and they just keep bickering at each other about things that don't really even matter to their lives.
I'm glad that you've talked about the ethnic rivalry that we experience. I mean, you've had a taste of it at the last elections. With the way that our politics is being run in Nigeria, do you ever see a time where we can run politics that is not based on ethnicity, where we don't have to thread along ethnic lines?
No, see, when a set of political leaders don't have a vision to sell, they sell division. It's not this is a fact. Right? If you don't have a vision to sell, to lift people up to see that vision, what you want to do is divide and rule. So you want to make sure that the classes, the tribes, the religions, they're not coming together. You want to sell an idea that has really nothing to do with your life after elections, that you should vote just because of this idea without selling any vision, any policy, any big ideas, you know? So that's what tends to happen. And it's not just me. I mean, you look at Lagos, for instance. Jimmy Agbaje is a thoroughbred, blue-blooded Lagosian. And they were calling him Jimmy Chukwu, right? So anybody that comes up to challenge the hegemony of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the first thing that's taken away from you is your Yorubaness. Same thing with Pa Aya Debanjo, same thing with even Chief Obasanjo, right? They will start questioning your Yorubaness, because as though the Yoruba group of people, the Yoruba tribe or Yoruba race, or however you want to allude to the Yoruba nation, is this group of people that are not allowed to think for themselves, and they must just do what this person says they should do. And that is very problematic. It's very problematic because the people don't get the best. If you are not asking questions and holding your politicians to higher standards, you're not going to get good governance. Good governance is not given willingly. It's because the politician should feel pressured that if they don't deliver good governance, they'll be kicked out. If they don't feel that way, then they're just coming to office to accrue wealth for themselves, their family, and their cronies. So it is a strategy. It's a strategy to divide and rule. It's a strategy to distract, especially for the young people.
But do you see that's a possibility for us to, overcome that in the next elections? We have, 2 years?
Certainly, because we've seen what happened in 2023. A lot of Nigerians have seen it. They've seen how the propaganda worked. They've seen the realities that they are living with. The person that you're insulting on Twitter or Facebook, both of you are buying for the same price. Both of you are experiencing a failed country together, right? Hunger is affecting everybody, regardless of tribe. So, as people, as leaders, you must learn from your mistakes. So, I do not expect a people to keep going around the same circle and expect a different result. You have to hold politicians accountable, and when they don't do well, you remove them. So let them go and learn some lessons. And if the person you put in there does not do well, remove him, put it back. Your life cannot be worse than what it is today, right? That's how I see it.
Okay, now let's talk about elections. Elections are a fundamental part of our democracy. We're celebrating independence, the ability for us to be able to make our own decisions, choose our own leaders. And elections are a key part. Unfortunately, in the past years, our elections have gotten a lot of criticism, not just from Nigerians, but also from international observers. What role, let's start with INEC. We'll talk about the different sectors and institutions that have a role to play in upholding our democracy, the courts inclusive. But let's start with INEC and the role that INEC has played so far.
Under President Goodluck Jonathan, there seemed to be a progressive step forward with INEC. Introduction of the card reader, unfortunately, to a system that actually got him out of office, right? And with this one, we believe that electronic transmission of voting would actually really bring some transparency and some good to our electoral process. Unfortunately, we were proved wrong. And all the hopes of Nigerians were dashed because overnight, somebody just decided that, you know what, we're not going to transmit election results, and there's been no consequence to that. Regardless of how much money was spent on INEC, regardless of how much money was donated to INEC to be able to achieve that. And if there are no consequences, why do you expect that they will do things any different this time? So we're a nation that consequences only come to those that are fighting government, right? And that is the issue. So I don't know many Nigerians that have faith in the electoral process. And at this point in time, the way we are looking at this is that we would have to face the elections understanding what happened in 2023 and make sure that the people are mobilized so that they also ensure that their votes count. It cannot be a situation where you vote and go home. You have to follow it. Because your life after elections, the next 3-4 years of your life is determined by what happened on that election day. And we need to create for democracy to work, the people's voices must be heard. And the people's voices must have consequence. That's the only way politicians will sit up and actually do right by the people. So it's very important that, the people, we're not going to look, we have to learn from what happened last time. There have been no consequences. Everybody's just carrying on with their lives.
But why weren't there consequences?
Well, because you have a situation of state capture, to my mind. There's been an active process of state capture that has happened across major institutions in Nigeria. Look at when I wanted to declare to just have an affirmation event for my followers to come and affirm that they're following me to join another party. The Commissioner of Police hijacked my campaign ground, right? And then on the day that I paid for, the APC held a rally there. Like, if there is no other incident that can explain what state capture is, it is that.
Just to touch on that, what you've mentioned, there were videos that were saw online of your team being attacked.
Yeah.
Were there investigations carried out? Have any arrests been made?
Who would investigate who? The police will investigate themselves. I'm talking about a commissioner of police that prevented me from having my constitutional rights to be able to gather, right? In Delta State, the entirety of the PDP governors decamped to APC. It was without event, right? And several other governors have done that. It was without event. It was not an issue, right? But somehow, this protracted thing where police supposed to enforce my constitutional rights, my human rights, they are the ones that are preventing that from happening. Right, so this situation with state capture is very, very unfortunate because today it's me, tomorrow it could be you, right? It's not about Gbadebo Rhodes-Vivour, it's about our rights as citizens, right? And if this is the new normal, at a point the people are going to have to push back, and that's not going to look pretty.
So when you say that, there's state capture, from your experience, you detailed what happened when you were about to announce moving to another political party. Investigations haven't been carried out from what you're saying, and no arrests have been made. Typically, the courts should be the final point. They're the last hope for the common man, it's said. But what's the role of the judiciary? Especially because if we look at our politics, one of the most common slogans we hear from politicians is go to court. If you're not in support, go to court. And we haven't seen a number of cases turn out in a different direction. It's almost like some people would argue that it's been a predicted direction. And so my question would be, what is the role of the judiciary and how do we strike that balance with finding the judiciary as truly the last hope of the common man and not being dragged into partisan politics?
There are several judges that retired from Supreme Court that have given their opinions about judiciary. If a name comes to me, former Chief Justice, GSF Supreme Court, Amina, I think she gave a scathing opinion about the state of judiciary. And the judiciary, more than any of the arms of government, is one that you progress through. You are not elected into it, so you are supposed to be above the fray. And they are literally the guardians of society. Because, like you said, they have the final say. The Senate, the presidency, everything comes under, because they are the ones that ultimately enforce and ensure that the Constitution is preserved, right? And where that institution is no longer looked up to or seen as that final arbiter, as that place where we get justice. Because right now, a lot of people tell you it's not a court where you get justice, a court of law. So that makes it prone to technicalities. That makes it prone to cases being thrown out because of a technicality, not because of a quest to find justice and deliver justice in a timely way. And that is why people have the opinion that they have now. Majority of people, you can do a poll. It'll be interesting, a poll in Nigeria to say, okay, what is your opinion on judiciary? I'm not saying that people are not finding justice in judiciary. I'm talking about the overall perspective of it. And that is very, very disheartening, and it's something that we should be worried about, because those are pillars that hold up the hope and belief that people have in a society.
All right, let's now move to another dimension. There's been an increase in the calls for participation in youth and of youth and women in politics. The conversation about the constitutional review is one that has been a top conversation. We've seen how there have been calls for 35% affirmative action. There have been calls for women to be, the constitution to be reviewed in such a way that women are guaranteed sort of a percentage, right, in politics. Some people just feel like it's face value, that it's not anything to be taken serious. But from what you've seen, let's use this current administration, the past 28 months. From what you've seen, has this administration shown you that there's been a priority in upholding women's rights to participate in politics?
I wouldn't say so. I wouldn't say so. I think it's in our interest as a people to have as many representative voices on the table for any decision that's being made. You come out with more robust policy, you come out with a policy that speaks to the needs of everybody, right? As opposed to just having men in power or having older people in power. You want youth representation, you want women representation for the robust health of the country. And I feel that, yes, the challenge of participating in politics is skewed against women, at least the politics that we play in this country. So our politics has to evolve significantly, where it is more about your ideas as opposed to how many people you know, how many people you are giving envelopes to, how you are organizing for security, or all of that kind of stuff. Does not really skew in favor of majority of women. Obviously, there's significant number of women that are also in politics and actively doing very well. But I feel that it should be more open and more welcoming to youth and women, because it creates a much more robust policy conversation.
I mean, certainly, women make up a huge percentage of the voting population.
Exactly.
And cannot be underrepresented. 4 out of 109 senators is a very terrible representation of women in politics. But do you believe in the constitutional amendment process? Do you believe that the Senate is going to take that as priority? And do you believe in the reforms that will be put forward in the constitutional review?
When you ask question, believe, I will see it when they do it now. I should not have to believe. It's not a religion. If you say you want to do something, do it, and let's see. Because ultimately, the proof is in the pudding. We will see the female representatives. I mean, political parties have done certain things. I remember in PDP, there was the whole thing of, and I think also in other parties as well, women do not pay the huge nomination fee for their forms. They pay just the expression of interest. So that reduces the financial barrier for women to come into office. And I saw that apply to youth as well, under 35. So those are some good steps. So I would like to see what the Senate also does to improve on that as well.
All right, now let's come to you. You have officially moved from the Labour Party to the ADC. Tell us how that journey has been for you. Yes, we know it wasn't without difficulty, like you expressed on the day of your announcement. You also did say that you've gotten the approval of His Excellency Peter Obi to move to the ADC.
Okay, so what's your question?
So the question is, what are your expectations for, how you think that the influence that the ADC will wield for you in the forthcoming elections?
So all of us are working on building a robust coalition. His Excellency Peter Obi as well, and several other political leaders in Nigeria. So when I say approval, I'm talking about us agreeing that this is the direction we want to go. This is what we're doing. It's not like, oh, can I go? Yes, you can go. No. It's a conversation about what is the step that needs to be taken, especially with this type of politics that's currently going on. This entrenchment of violence and aggression and intimidation and state capture. You cannot think you will face a system like this by yourself. You're just deceiving yourself, putting people's lives on the line and wasting a huge amount of money. So we need to pool our resources and come together in several ways, right? And that's what we're working actively at. A success in that field will be ensuring that opposition is united around one candidate, right? And we all pool our resources, ideas, strength behind that person and face this current.
This challenge you mentioned, is the ADC immune from it? Because we see different people with different ideologies coming together, and many people argue that it seems that the vision of the ADC is literally just to come and kick APC out of office. And that with the multiple ideologies of the different people coming together, there will soon be an implosion. So
there are ideologies of the different people, or interest. I even think the word interest is better. But there's also an ideology of the ADC that's been enshrined in their constitution. Things like ensuring that no particular politician can claim godfather status over the party and own the party. There are mechanisms in place in the constitution to prevent that from happening, and can challenge that in court. Right? That is new. I mean, I've read different political parties' constitutions, and there's nothing like that I've seen before. So the ADC has its own ideology. Now, the bigger idea here is, okay, how can we come together around specific interest? And that's what we are working towards, right? And it's not easy. It's not an easy journey, but it's something that everybody has agreed must be done, right? So that's the first step. And between now and December, I'm sure you see that distilled and filtered down.
Okay, as we wrap up, just to confirm, you're running for office.
Why do you guys ask me this question every time? Yes, by God's grace.
You know, because a lot of people change their mind last minute.
I'm not that kind of person. No, I'm not that kind of person. I try to be a man of my word, so I don't talk carelessly.
Okay, so what sort of changes would you like to see, first in Lagos State and in Nigeria? So when we're having another Independence Day address, the 66th Independence Day address, what are some of the changes you would like to see, first in Lagos State and then in our country, Nigeria?
I'd like to see a visionary government that is about implementing ideas and not passing the buck and responsibility on the people, right? I want to see visionary means by which our flooding system is managed, understand that Lagos is a sinking city, and seeing structures put in place to reduce that, reduce the flooding, reduce the amount of waste that is gathered in our gutters. Our gutters are covered properly. Understand that Lagos can be a sponge city, right? So you're not going to destroy Makoko and then sandfill it. You look at the still system that they have. How do you modernize it? Look at the Netherlands and how they are managing their water situation. Look at Japan and how they manage GCAN. Look at Venice and how they're managing it. And that should then be enshrined in our building codes, right? And then we also need a state that is working in partnership with its people, not constantly looking to demolish buildings where people are such a hard time. Yesterday we had the trade fair that is under that an act was passed by the federal government to establish it. They have a body by which they get their planning approvals and petitions and all of that done. Now, Lagos State came and is destroying so many buildings in a country where you don't have mortgages, in a country where the economy is so hard. The quickness with which they destroy things. And then they said it was on a drainage channel. We went there to look. We did not see any such thing. The canal is there. It's not even, it does not even have an embankment. So the government has failed to put an embankment on that particular canal. Okay, they come and they are destroying things. And this also happened last year, earlier in the year, where they were just going around demolishing, destroying buildings. And you think a government should show empathy, right? It should be looking to solve problems, not constantly looking to exert power, right? And that also is as a result of a lack of consequences. You know, when politicians have gotten away with so much for so long, they start to get this idea that they're invisible, that the people cannot get them out. And that's not healthy for our democracy, right? So I want a government that is more responsive to people, more transparent, more accountable. You see with President Tinubu now, our finances have become opaque. Reports that are supposed to be put out every year, we're seeing that is no longer happening. Similar things happening in Lagos State as well. Our finances need to be open so that it can get a life of its own. Transparency allows for credibility to be built. It allows for, it also checks corruption. Because now you know that these things are going to be transparent and people are going to see it, so we cannot be so in your face about the corruption and not care about it, you know. So those are some of the things that I feel need to change. You know, really embracing merit, right? And actually a vision that comes to unite. There should be a big vision that works to unite the Nigerians. From our syllabus in our history to our policies to how we manage ethnic tensions, there must be a bigger vision to create a Nigerian. You see, and that has to be artificially done, just the way Lord Lugard artificially joined North and South. If we decide that we're going to be Nigeria, there must be a bigger vision to create a Nigerian in mind, in thought, in deed, right? And there are ways by which you do this. And I tell people, look at America. America is a country that is made up of the Italians, the Irish, the Scandinavians, but there is an idea of what it means to be American. They are proud to be American. Why? It's from their architecture to their history in school, to their education, to even propaganda. There's such a thing as positive propaganda. Propaganda does not just have to be about covering government's lies and creating division among yourselves so you divide and rule. Propaganda can unite your people around a vision and an idea of who they are, right? So these are some things that we want to see, bigger ideas, people that are coming to office based on ideas and vision, not dividing us and buying our votes.
Gbadebo Rhodes-Vivour, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
All right, this is still Breakfast Central. We'll now be connecting back to Joe in the studio. It's over to you, Joe.
Very interesting conversation you had there with, I could say, the man who has moved to the ADC. And the conversations are indeed very interesting. I could see some reactions online. Thanks, Olive, and thank you to Mr. Gbadebo Rhodes for also speaking with us. Well, we're going to crisscross now and leave Olive and, of course, our guest, having looked at the presidential speech. We're going to go straight to another country. Unfortunately, we just have to take a quick dive into another country, live in Nigeria, while we mark 65 years of independence. We'll go straight to South Africa, where there's a lot happening. And we do have our team who are there on ground actually enjoying the kickoff. It's actually the 5th edition of the African Energy Week, which officially kicked off yesterday in Cape Town, South Africa, having over 7,000 participants from more than 100 countries, and this year seems to be a very pivotal one. Well, let's go live to Cape Town and let's see what is happening right there.
Who have deep pockets, who also have capacity to mobilize resources to invest in Nigeria, with a view to addressing the energy security problems in Nigeria. So I welcome all of you. And I recognize all of you, ladies and gentlemen, who are here to be part of this, session, which is tagged Invest in Nigeria. You agree with me that Nigeria has experienced, significant reforms under the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration. No doubt there are opportunities, and the future of Nigeria's oil and gas is the greatest, in Africa. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is actually a privilege to speak with you, today about why you should prefer to invest in Nigeria as opposed to any other destination. Nigeria is Africa's largest, oil producer. Nigeria is also, we have the 9th largest gas reserves in the world. And these figures are some 20 years ago. He's always contended that, if we do some work now, we could be as endowed as much as, 600 trillion cubic feet. But we'll stick to the figures that have been there, before, which is 290 trillion, cubic, feet. Nigeria is also strategically positioned, on the Atlantic as a natural hub to service the West African sub-region when it comes to, supply, of energy, to satisfy the African needs, for the African market. Under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's, administration, certain executive orders, which are very bold, have reduced approval time, because part of the complaint we had when we came was that things that have to be done within a short time were taking as long as 2 years. And yesterday, all of you who attended the opening ceremony, we hear from one of the speakers there that, look, one of the secrets.
We sincerely apologize for that hitch in the live transmission there. We'll try as much as possible to ensure that we can reconnect to South Africa. But let's come back to Nigeria, where Nigeria has marked its 65th, you could say, years of independence. And Nigerians are equally reacting to the president's speech on social media. Not just that, we did get a glimpse and were able to speak to a few Nigerians just before the independence clock struck. But let's take a look at what they're saying.
President Tinubu is trying his best to correct all the anomalies that have been in existence for a long time. But what I want them to do, let me just say them, because not only him can correct it, is that the food, let the food be cheap. Be cheap. They told us last week that they are correcting it, that it will soon come to normal prices. But we are still praying that it will soon come to that. But please and please and please, Mr. President, please, we want to buy rice, 30,000 naira. We want to buy all these utensils, everything, all the foods and all the expenses with the cheapest price.
If you go to the market now, if you price something today, tomorrow you want to buy it, they have increased the price. We want a country where there will be price control, and the fuel is expensive and it's affecting everything. Where situation where fuel price is bring down so that everybody can be able to afford price and petrol. I'm sure if the petrol the price of petrol is reduced, it will affect every price in the market.
That's what Nigerians are saying, especially on the streets concerning its 65th year or 65 years of independence. Let's go back now to South Africa and reconnect, and let's get to hear what is indeed being said there at the African Energy Week.
Our experience. But I think very soon we're going to be charging costs so that we can give appropriate value to the advice we give to them. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, within this period, the confidence in the industry BCF of gas daily for our own, energy demand. You also know that as Nigeria, we supply the entire West African sub-region. Yesterday, some of you who heard, my counterpart from Ghana speaking, he alluded to the fact that Nigeria is
this is hard evidence known to, to the world. And Nigeria is now a space where capital, could be easily attracted. More so at this particular time that even the IEA had changed its position, which was that, look, abandon fossil fuel, so that we can give you in return handouts. All of you were here when we were told that the International Energy Agency itself has said that there will be energy crisis in the world unless we invest $540 billion per annum on oil and gas. That is very good for us, because we have been contending that, look, the Paris Agreement had nothing to do with abandoning any sort of energy, but reducing emissions. But somehow, some people decided to distort the Paris Agreement. But I'm very happy that all of us are going back to the content of the Paris Agreement that says that, look, reduce CO2 emissions. And also to tell you, Nigeria, having adopted gas as a transition fuel, we also brought a policy to commercialize any flare gas. And so today, we are nearly, experiencing zero flares in Nigeria. Nigeria may be perhaps the first African country to experience zero flare. And we are supporting, those who want to invest in that space to do what they need to do. So in summary, let me say that Nigeria is full of opportunities. In the upstream we have deep water, shallow water, and swamp acreages with vast reserves. In the downstream, we recently launched the West African reference market. Because we believe that Nigeria, because of our geographical location, and because whatever, you import into Nigeria, whatever you refine in Nigeria, essentially services the entire West African sub-region. So recently, NMDPRA, in collaboration, with S&P Global, launched the West African reference market. But we want to see how Nigeria will be, the anchor for refined products to satisfy, the African markets. You heard yesterday, and the data is there for all of you, to confirm, that in 2024 alone, Africa imported about $120 billion of hydrocarbon refined products and related services. $120 billion. And our target in Nigeria, at this particular defining moment, is to see how we can, capture part of that money. Even if we take 20% of that, it will be a good starting point. Bearing in mind that if you refine products in Nigeria, if you invest in the midstream, you certainly will have a market that will service not only Nigeria with a consumption of 50 million liters per day, not to talk of the diesel that is consumed, the naphtha, the byproducts that are needed, in Nigeria, but also the entire West African sub-region, up to Central African Republic. And that was why I recall that when we remove subsidy from Nigeria to trigger private sector investment, Nigerians didn't protest as much as our neighbors who protested. How can we remove our subsidy that was bleeding Nigeria? And the protest was in neighboring countries, not in Nigeria. That is evidence of the fact that whatever we were doing was basically subsidizing the entire West African sub-region. The point is that Nigeria is the gateway to the West African market. And by extension, we want Nigeria to be the gateway to the entire, African, market. And I think that this will be the best time for anybody who is thinking about investing in hydrocarbon to invest in Nigeria. so you can take advantage of the opportunities that exist in Nigeria. So ladies and gentlemen, I don't want to bore you anymore, but the summary is that we have enormous opportunities in upstream, in midstream, and in downstream. And now that the world is changing, do not wait till tomorrow. Make your decision now, cut the deals.
From killings and abductions in rural communities to clamp down on protesters and the arrest of outspoken voices, human rights remain at the center of Nigeria's democratic journey. Recent figures show thousands killed or displaced by violence, and reports of harassment, arbitrary detention, and censorship have kept debates alive both at home and abroad.
5 years of nationhood, the question still remains, are we actually making progress? The president made a speech earlier on in the early hours of this morning, and reactions seem to differ. But joining us to discuss this is a lawyer and activist, Deji Adeyanju, joins us this morning. Thank you for being here. And what's your take on the president's speech made this morning? And are you also worried that there seems to be no critical explanation as to why there wasn't any parade?
What should the country be parading and celebrating about, really? We've just lost a journalist in our own home in Abuja, and we've had some very disturbing security concerns in Kwara, in Kogi, and other places in the country. So should be a sober reflection on the challenges that the country is facing and going through. There's really nothing to celebrate or parade about, So in my view, I'm not concerned in any way. I think the right and proper thing was to have suspended all forms of celebration in order to reflect the true state and position of the nation.
Okay, let's now talk about the Cybercrime Act. How would you assess this administration's use of the Cybercrime Act? We've seen the protest against particularly Section 24, which was said to be subject to multiple interpretations and can be used as a tool for suppressing human rights.
One expects that the president should commit to protecting freedom before and after speech. The president is the former union leader, he's a former critic, he's a former opposition figure in the country. He has been critical of other people in government, and people around this government have massively benefited from struggles, similar struggles, pro-democracy struggles. And so one expects more liberality from them, more ability to tolerate dissent and criticism and divergence of opinions. And the Cybercrime Act, which has become one of the greatest commodities used by the Nigerian police force to gather resources from complainants, because you cannot just explain, there's no any other explanation. The police need to be called to order reigning. And look at what we currently have. And even as we celebrate Democracy Day today, we have a lawyer, Chinedu Agu, in Imo, who criticized Hope Uzodinma, has been detained for about a week now by a magistrate, a fellow lawyer in Imo State, and remanded just for criticizing the governor. Then we have journalist Fejiro Oliver detained in Delta for 2 weeks for criticizing the Delta State governor, a senator, and one Stella Okotete or something like that. He criticized them. He's been very critical. The journalist in that state has been detained for 2 weeks. How can we be celebrating Democracy Day when the police is at the center of all this? The police, they just like Fela Anikulapo Kuti humorously said that the police has come to bank. DPO is now a bank manager. It looks more like the police are doing trading with Section 24 of the Cybercrime Prevention Act of 2015. It's unfortunate that even the specific sections relating to cybercrime has been repealed in that Section 24. But the police will continue in contravention of the extant law, continue to arrest, charge people with that section. In fact, I was involved in a case that Femi Falana took over for us in Lagos before Honorable Justice Oruche of the Federal High Court in Lagos, involving the FRN and one Harrison Ofegbu, popularly known as Jele, speaks, wherein we have challenged the jurisdiction of the Federal High Court or any court in Nigeria to charge and arraign anyone for cyber stalking or cyber crime, stating fully that the relevant sections of that provision of Section 24 of the Cybercrime Act, both Section 1 and 2, that is the ingredient and the punishment section, have been repealed, since repealed by the 2024 amendment. And my Lord Justice Oruche agreed with us and said that you cannot charge anybody, but the police continue, to, in flagrant disobedience of the current position of the examiner, continue to arrest and charge people. Because they don't really care, they just want to extract punishment of some sort from citizens, whether eventually the charge has been struck down or not. The police just don't care, they're just contractors, by big men, powerful people in government.
Well, let's come back to what we saw today and what we heard from the president. The president talked about Nigeria celebrating its 65th independence. Part of the highlights was the monies. I think that has really stood out. Over 330 billion that has actually been doled out to 8 million households. He says in trenches, I beg your pardon, 5,000 naira, some get it once, some get it twice. That's one thing he said. He also came down to insecurity, which he highlighted that the government has indeed equally done well. There were also cases of the state government that had received more money. Therefore, it's expected that because they have more money, governance would be very soothing and easy. Amongst all of these things he said, what did you take as a very positive message from the president in his speech?
Yeah, the only thing that I'll say I agree in completely with the president is the aspect of the state governors getting quadruple what they used to get. Some of them even get 5 times what they used to get. Every other thing I do not agree. Fortunately, as we celebrate Democracy Day today, 1st of October 2025, it's important for us to reflect on the state of our democracy. For me, today, democracy in Nigeria seems to exist only in Abuja. It's almost non-existent at subnational levels. Just take a look at our governors. Our governors wield so much or excessive power with no little accountability, and they are shielded from scrutiny at all levels. The only thing that they seem to fear is the EFCC. And even the fear of the EFCC, you recall that about a year ago, 19 state governors, nearly crippled the EFCC. They went to court. It took the intervention of the Supreme Court, and the judiciary, for the fight against corruption to continue, and Nigeria will have suffered indeed a fatal blow. The same disregard about accountability is the same reason why the judgment of the Supreme Court on local government autonomy, is largely unenforceable. In my view, I feel leaders cannot cherry pick which laws to obey and which laws not to obey. For us to enjoy true democracy, it must be rooted in accountability at every level, in my view. Not just at the Federal Capital Territory, where that is currently where we have some semblance of democracy, and where all the attention is. Look at, for instance, let's look at even at the federal level. Let's look at the ministers. How many ministers do we have today in Nigeria that are not ghost workers? How many of them are performing? Maybe about 3 or 4 are the ones that are working. Nigeria, a country of Nigeria's magnitude, cannot have ministers who are missing in action. Ministers who are just ministers by portfolio. Independence, should mean more security for Nigerians. Nigeria urgently needs to strengthen its internal security mechanism so that citizens can feel safe in their home. That is why a journalist of Arise can be killed right in our own home. So the idea that, people can feel safe is why we should have government. And that's why Section 14 of our Constitution talks about that the primary responsibility of government is the protection of life and property. And look, what we have today, does not engender or ensure security. If we need to do state policing, so be it. Let's quickly hurry up and do it. But what we have today, and the governors received so much, but there's practically nothing whatsoever to show for the humongous amount that the governors have received in the last 2 years. In fact, ironically, in my view, I think some of the governors were even doing better before President Tinubu came, when they were earning far lesser than what they currently have today. The only people enjoying dividends of democracy under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, really enjoying, are the governors, because they now have more to loot and more to their salaries, allowances, and escapos have increased. So that's of Nigeria.
Network connectivity.
We're hoping that he
right
can
there.
come back and we can, we're inching closer to the end of the conversation. We're looking at human rights abuses. It would be great to look at how far we've come in terms of the way in which our cases have been handled, police interference in crimes, or police interference in issues. Remember the conversation I had with Gbadebo Rhodes-Vivour, where he accused the Commissioner of Police of being culpable in the harassment that he and his team experienced. So how far, when it comes to extended detentions without trial, political interference of the police, and even cases like that of Nnamdi Kanu, and how that has been handled, and what the way forward will be in addressing human rights violations when we look at Nigeria at 65.
Absolutely. And he also made a point that it seems like the governors were performing more when they were earning less, compared to now that they say they are earning more, but it seems that the performances have actually dropped. And whether you like it or not, if you do see, some of these things that we talk about is not because one just wants to become an antagonist, or one just wants to see things with a blind eye. We did have two guests who joined us earlier this morning, and they highlighted some of the very key significant areas that they think improvement needs to be worked on. And just like our guests, although unfortunately the network seems to be a bit shaky, he did make mention of that as well, and some aspects of human rights, like Olive also said, highlighting Fela, the late Afrobeat legend, Fela Anikulapo Kuti's statement about the police. And I think it's a call for the police to equally redeem their image. It's not the first time Nigerians have asked for a redemption from the police, but I think it's high time that they also look into it and find a way to do so. But then again, that's a conversation we're going to have on human rights. We will be going to a package that has been actually prepared by one of our producers, and of course, our reporter who's looked into the situation of Nigeria's independence 65 years on. Now, when it comes to unity, it always has to do with people who gather together, people who unite as one. And many have said it's only sports. When it comes to sports, Nigerians are one. Nobody cares who scored
and
the goal.
Music. I think music unites us on strong.
Entertainment.
Exactly. We're very united in those lines. But there's a lot that needs to be done while we celebrate our country having our independence at 65. The question is, what truly is the picture of the Nigeria at 65 that we want? And what roles do we all have to play collectively? More importantly, how can we establish systems and structures of accountability for the government, for the different arms of the government in terms of the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary? All through today on News Central, we're going to be analyzing Nigeria at 65. And for us here, we'll be wrapping up the conversation. We'll be back again tomorrow with Gbenga Borowa here with us, all three of us on set. But thank you very much for joining us, as well as those who've been streaming live, engaging with our content. We'll be sharing clips from this interview on YouTube, as well as X and other platforms. Please do well to engage with us. We'll be out of the studio. And from us here, we'll say Happy Independence Day, Nigeria. I am Olive, MOD.
And I'm Joe Hansen. Thanks for watching.
All right.
Though tribes and tongues may differ, in brotherhood we stand. Those words from Nigeria's national anthem carried the hope of a young nation that gained its independence in 1960, but the optimism captured in these images was soon tested by a bloody civil war. Out of its cars came a bold experiment in unity, the creation of the National Youth Service Corps in 1973.
One of the institutions that have endured so far is the National Youth Service Commission, which was established immediately after the Civil War in Nigeria. And one of the reasons it was established was to bridge the communication gap between the West and the East, and also the North. And so far so good. Over 50 years after, this has been the only enduring institutions that we can actually comfortably say we have.
If you ask me the state of NYS as of today, I will say that, of course, the reason for it is still noble, to foster unity among the Nigerian peoples.
50 years later, the NYC still carries that vision, but Nigeria has found unity in other unexpected places, through the roar of stadiums, the beats of music, and the pride of cultural festivals. When the Super Eagles score, traffic away, Nollywood movies and Afrobeat songs now echo across every corner of the country, offering a common identity and shared pride.
Nigeria should be self-dependent, and should gain self-independence in 1956. And the Northerners said no, that we were not ready. And that eventually led to Kano riot of 1956. And that was just 4 years before independence. So as at the time we were gaining independence in 1960, it was obvious to the leadership at the time that they had primary assignment to ensure that the country was unified. So the unity in diversity that they're talking about is the fact that they recognize the fact that yes, we are different orientation, but yes, we are the manifest destiny, like I said earlier, to live together.
But if culture and sport binds us together, what then tears us apart?
I doubt so much if we live by what we say. We said, though tribes and tongue may differ, in brotherhood we start, but in reality that is not what is obtainable. That is not what we see. Even in the federal character, in the federal appointment, you find out that there seems to be some particular people that are favored than the other. I will say no to politics because we seem to be more divided when it comes to the issue of politics.
In Nigeria, we are divided. We are no more united in terms of crisis, in terms of leadership. Leadership and crisis, to me, is what divides us in this country.
To some extent, I think we still live by that. Looking at the situation of the country now, even at what we are passing through, you could still see some people that are willing to help. It means there's still brotherhood, there's still togetherness in this country.
I think the major thing that unites us in this country is sports, in the sense that sports brings unity among different tribes. There is no tribalism when it comes to sports.
65 years on, unity is still Nigerians' greatest strength, but history shows it cannot be left to slogans or songs alone. The test is to leave those words in classrooms, in stadiums, elections, and in everyday life, until brotherhood becomes not just an anthem, but a reality. In Lagos for News Central, I am Amazing Adesanya.
Nigeria, you're my fatherland. On these I hold my stand. And whatever be the lifespan, God will hold your hand. As we celebrate Independence Day, let us come to God and say, Father, come and have your way, and freedom will come to stay. We've got every reason to be glad, even though some of our leaders are bad. Remember, God is such a wonderful dad. He's only reserving their red card. Nigeria, however through the years you've weakened, your manpower daily remains thickened. So beautiful and blessed you are. I wouldn't trade you for gold or silver. Nigeria, a nation of strong and beautiful people, whose die-hard spirits to me still remains a puzzle. Watch the toddlers get off their beds and go to school with loads of books on their head. Check out their parents too. Same thing with their toddlers they do. They get off their beds early, though uncomfortable, just to see there is food on the family's table. How beautiful these people are, as they have a nature so rare. Nigeria, you are aging gracefully. It's fun seeing you bubbling. You are a well-written page, staying beautiful even with age. It's heartbreaking seeing compatriots seek a greener pasture when we need no green card in the greenest of nations. It's a beautiful land that I have. With all my strength, same land I'll serve. Entreat those that are already left to come, for no place can compare to home. Beautiful, beautiful is my home, never in another's land to roam.